Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers Radio, 100 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Jordan Klein. He is Nick Queen. She is the lovely Lola Miller. How you doing this week, Lola?
Very good. How are you guys?
Oh, never been better.
Good.
Maybe Nikki's probably been better.
A little bit.
Look, he almost combed his hair this morning.
Yeah.
It just goes wherever it wants to. Even if I comb it, it does this. So.
Give us
That's
a call.
what product is for.
Guys don't use product.
Yes, they do.
Manly men.
Used up. That's the newest commercial campaign.
Is that
out there.
one where the guy's like, I'm sitting on a horse? No, I'm not.
No, that's Old Spice.
That's
I'm
Old Spice.
Sitting on a horse backwards.
Yeah, I like
that commercial.
Yeah, my
like
wife
this
likes that one.
I like the one where it's like the half horse, half. He's like, I like this because it's two things, and I'm two things. I'm a man, I'm a smart shopper. That kills me.
I haven't seen that one.
Give us a call, 304-214-1600.
Yeah.
1-866-5-1600. That's toll free. We'd love to hear from you. We haven't had any phone calls in a while. Got a letter. I just want to say Whispers Radio and UPRN, our families would like to give out a special thanks and remembrance to Nora, who has been a supporter of the show for over the last 2 years. She today has finished the race with from cancer. She passed away just moments ago. She has given us research materials and stuff like that. Thought that they would help. They're the ones that found the plate from the Queen Mary and give it to us. So I just want to encourage everybody to send your prayers and thoughts that way to the family. So. Yeah, I got the call right before the show.
Sad.
So I just want to do that. Also, we got the Penn trip coming up. Penn trip is June 30th. That's a Wednesday. We say, Jordan, why would you schedule that on a Wednesday? I didn't have a choice. But it's a Wednesday, and we were like, man, what can we do to make it more fun? You know what? I know it's a Wednesday, but I'm going to go anyway. Well, we're bringing demonologists to New York to come and give a presentation about demonology and all that kind of thing, going through the pen with us. Herb Street, who is an investigator who has created the Herb Street, he's going to be going through the pen with you guys. And Drake, who is a big part of the show, she's been on the show probably more than anybody else. She teaches classes, she does that, and she also knows about the pen. She's trying to be there as well. Guys, we're also going to be it's going to be a fun night. Well worth the Wednesday night trip, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Go to whispers.com. There's a little space at the top that says Ghost Hunt. Click on it, and you can get your tickets. It'll be a fun time. There's a limited amount of tickets, and we want to make sure everybody. How come nobody ever told me? Well, anybody else have anything to chime in?
No, our guest is on the phone.
Introduce our guest.
I can do that. All right. Well, Archbishop James Long studied for over 6 years as a Catholic priest. At age 5, he knew he wanted to be a priest, and at age 9, began studying demons because he felt God was calling him to serve as a demonologist. He is currently the presiding Archbishop for the United States Church. Bishop, you with us?
I sure am. Thanks for inviting me to come on.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Something that we always enjoy. Well, I guess enjoy talking about. I don't know if you can enjoy it, but topic. I don't know, kind of getting timely too, to some degree. But now, being Archbishop. Now, what exactly? Honest, I'm not a Catholic, so I always get confused with the bishop, priest. I'll be honest.
Yeah, what are you?
I've been asked that many times. What am I? Before Archbishop, bishop, before anything, I'm a priest. I'm a servant of the church, and that's what titles and when you start talking about archbishops and bishops, certainly those are titles within the church. There's also a level of responsibilities, and of course, when you're talking about apostolic see, apostolic succession, then you're talking about bishops and more et cetera, et cetera. So the Archbishop is the head of the United States Old Catholic Church, which I am. But at the same time, before anything else, before Archbishop, before Bishop, I am a priest, and that is the most important thing that I stress to. So I'm a servant.
That's good, and that's good to clear up. Now, demonology fall into this? Is that do you usually take this field like that part of is that a mistake?
Actually, no. Demonology is really when you fall into a demonology field, to serve in this type of ministry. It really is a calling to serve in this field. Not all are called in the field of demonology, and just as not all are called to serve in the of the priesthood, not all are called to serve as a demonologist. And so, that's one thing that, especially when I do conferences and talks, that demonology is secular. Demonology is theological. It's not paranormal. And I've stressed that again because quite often the secular world, a theological term, and has tried to made it a secular term, and it's not. Demonology is truly it's a ministry and it's a calling, and so really it should be one who is called to obviously to study demonology.
Now, how do you feel about the people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the strict demonologists? How do you feel about people like that? That they say, well, if regular people get possessed, they call a priest gets possessed, they call Ed and Lorraine. That's like their. So how do you feel about that?
Well, when a priest gets possessed, they call another priest. They don't call Ed and Lorraine. Ed and Lorraine rest. And so, well, Ed has passed away, but Lorraine is, and she'll tell you she's not an so that she cannot perform an exorcism because she's not an ordained priest. So if a priest is possessed, she cannot perform an exorcism.
I think she says she's a demonologist. That's that she goes by, I guess.
Yes, understand that there are laity demonologists.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain that to me? Because I thought the demonologist did the exorcisms.
Oh, I'm really glad that you. A demonologist is one who has actually studied demonology and who is appointed at times by church officials to go out and actually perhaps cases of demonic cases, and who present those cases to the church for the possibility of performing minor rite of exorcism or the solemn ritual. Now, there's a difference between the minor rite of exorcism and the solemn ritual. The minor rite is an exorcism that's performed on a house such as a demonic infestation.
Okay.
The minor rite of exorcism, that's the minor rite. The solemn ritual that is performed on a person who is possessed. Okay. There's a distinction between the two. That can only be performed by an ordained exorcist, the solemn ritual. And that is a person who is possessed. A trained demonologist would go out and perform investigations, determine whether it's infestation or possession, and then, of course, the church determination is made on whether or not an exorcism is needed to perform an exorcism.
Now, can you tell us honestly how often does the church perform exorcism? Hollywood says now, oh, we don't do that anymore. And them that an exorcism is needed. Like for real life, what's it really like?
Well, I've done 4 real exorcisms in 10 years. Now, But now, keep in mind, exorcisms and deliverances are 2 different things. Now, when you're talking about an exorcism, you're talking about someone who is truly possessed, who has no control over their bodily functions at all.
Kind of like The Exorcist.
I'm sorry?
Like the movie The Exorcist, turning green and vomiting stuff.
Well, it's similar.
I'm shooting out there. I'm sorry.
Now, I think once you act an exorcist and you perform, let me just. This is something that I do for no charge. There's no money at all. I could spend at least 60 hours a week on this. Mm-hmm. If I was absolutely not convinced that possession did not exist, I would be doing something else with my time. Yeah. I have a doctorate in ministry education. I graduated from Loyola University in Chicago, in Sarasota, Florida. I'm pretty educated. Yeah. I can tell you that the things that I have seen and witnessed, I am absolutely 100% convinced as I'm speaking to you now that possession does exist. Wow. And I can tell you that it is horrific. Yeah. Now, I will say that of the horrific conditions that do it is so serious that I can also tell you that it's dangerous. Yeah. But there are things during an exorcism that is so sensitive, and that's why you have to be very sensitive to not only, but also, of course, the families who are present as well, because it really does take a toll on not only the person, but families.
Now, I hate to bring up movies again, but
Sure, no problem.
the movie The Exorcism of Emily, that shows the woman is just beat up and looks decrepit. That's kind of what it's like through the process of an exorcism. The body just gets so destroyed.
It can be, absolutely. That all the sound bites and the case file, and it actually went to trial, and so I have practically the whole entire case, everything on her name. Her name was Annalise Mikkel, and she was a young German girl, and her body was so deteriorated by the time that she was only 68 pounds.
Wow.
And she had died from malnutrition, dehydration. And the reason being is the demonic would not allow her to eat at all. And that's very common, especially possessed. Now, she was diabolically possessed, possession of multiple. So food or water, small food and water would never be allowed because obviously she would get violently ill. And there were she would pray, and she would literally be lifted from the floor and slide wooden floors, and her parents just called thump, like someone was lifting and thumping the onto the floor. That's what it sounded like.
Wow.
When they were downstairs. It just sounded like someone was just constantly, and it was her knees hitting the floor, and her parents and even the priest saw this happening.
Now, have you experienced things like this too?
Yes.
Can you tell us any of those stories? Or
I'm rather I stay away from talk about a couple. One situation is the first time that I've ever come across is a young girl. She was 17 years old, and she had actually, when we got involved, bitten her tongue off. She was biting the bottom part of her lip and trying to gouge her eyes and lacerated her cheekbone. To the point where you could almost see her cheek. She was in trouble.
Yeah.
And so, but she was almost in a like a catatonic state to the point where she wasn't responding, and it was almost like she was gargling, like she was choking. And of course, I was lifting her neck up to kind of remove whatever that was perhaps maybe blocking her passage. And she opened her eyes, and there was nothing but solid black. Nothing. It was just the blackness. But it was a reflection. It was a blackness that would look. You could actually see. You can actually see paranormal clergy. That goes off nonstop. But it's interesting because you can actually see the reflection, your own reflection. And it was. I stopped. Actually, at the moment, I couldn't move, and it was pretty. When you look in someone's eyes, and you actually kind of. It makes you think for a second. And actually, I stopped, and I was the assistant at that time, and the main exorcist performed this quick blessing, and we continued with the ritual.
Well, we had a phone call with a question. Wanted to know, how do you know what you use to determine the difference between someone that is possessed and, say, someone that is ill, like a schizophrenic or something like that?
Good question. And one thing that we do is we have a psychological evaluation before we even think about having an exorcist come even close to the person who is allegedly possessed. We have a psychological evaluation. We have a thorough background check, the medication the person is on, and then of course we have we have to speak to the doctor, the psychiatrist who has given the background of the psychological evaluation. We have to absolutely rule out everything. Understand that I am the biggest skeptic there is.
Yeah.
So when someone calls me and says that they think that they're possessed, the very first thing thinking is prove it. And really, I am a huge skeptic because there's one of four things that are going on. Either one, they're lying, and they're just trying to get attention. Two, they're mistaking the information. They're mistaken. They think that there's something going on, but it can be explained logically. Three, they're telling you the truth. Or four, they're mentally ill. And it's one of those four.
Yeah.
And so I'm the type of person that I'm like, prove it to me. I don't believe it until you prove it. And so, and furthermore, a person who is mentally ill, a person who is mentally ill cannot have the knowledge of dead languages. A person mentally ill cannot speak the dead languages backwards, like mimic. And when I speak Aramaic, the Our Father in Aramaic, entity actually spoke I was saying Our Father in Aramaic, Abu Mashmai, and then it would actually say it backwards, mocking me in Aramaic. Schizophrenia, that is a clear thing else there. A schizophrenic person cannot know your sins. So there are many things that a person who is schizophrenic cannot do that a demonic entity.
They can't replicate it.
I'm sorry?
They can't replicate, what a real exorcism, real possession.
I will say that, and that's a question that I ask a lot. There are a person who is mentally ill, a person who is mentally ill does not have the languages, the knowledge of death. A person who is mentally ill does not know your personal sins. Is mentally ill can't do those things that a person who's truly possessed does.
Yeah.
So there are clear. It is really the distinctions are so clear. Even then, even if I have someone levitating, even if I have someone speaking in dead languages, someone actually telling me I have someone doing all of these things, I still have them do a psychological. I still want to know every patient that they're on. I have to know this for many reasons.
Now, is there like a stage, I guess, that most possessions happen? Because, I think, most of the TV says, oh, girls, with the possessions, but is there really a certain age that it usually happens?
Yeah, usually at the age of reason. I have found that at the age of 14 and above tend to be in the age range where that's a possibility of possession can occur. Poltergeist is not what I found through my primary research. Of course, research that's actually in the field. I have found that has nothing to do with demonic entities, and the reason poltergeist I have found the negative energy that's emitting from an individual or individuals. Like for example, you have extreme emotional distress that's occurring within a family, or a child going through puberty, or especially now, and we're getting a lot of poltergeist cases. Many people are losing their jobs, losing their houses. A lot of fighting going on in the homes because. Understandably so, because the economy is so terrible. And so there's a lot of extreme emotional distress that's occurring. And so what I'm teaching paranormal groups is learn what's going on behind this, peel the layers back, and you're going to find some stress occurring within this family. And when you get the family help, counseling, dealing with these emotional distresses, you will find it will decrease or stop altogether. That's not going to occur with the invitation issue. You can get the family all day long, but the invitation will continue. So furthermore, if you take, let's say, if you have someone going through extreme emotional distress that's causing the poltergeist activity, if you remove a person from the home, the activity will stop. With a demonic infestation, if you remove everyone from the home, the demonic continues. Yeah. And so therefore, the demonic infestation and poltergeist are two different things.
Yeah. Wow. We are going to take a break real quick. If you can hang with Bishop James Long, we're talking about exorcisms. We're talking about demonology. Our numbers here, 304-1600, toll free, 1-866-1600. Our astronomers, an indie band from Virginia. Your radio. We'll be right back.
A post-game recap, assess and reassess and make a note of high and low to save for next time. Learn a thing or two.
Welcome back, everybody, to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. He's Nick Queen. She is the lovely Lola Miller. Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. What you're listening to is The Astronomers. They're a band out of Virginia. Go on MySpace and Facebook on there. They're a great group of people. Music is awesome. Archbishop James Long, exorcisms. Sir, you still with us?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not.
Now, before the break, we were talking about the difference between a possession and a poltergeist. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to, steer clear of too much of the paranormal and get into like the ritual, because the difference between a deliverance and the ritual.
Mhm.
Can you talk to us about?
Well, when you're talking about the ritual, you're talking about when you're talking about the minor rite and the solemn ritual. Technically, the minor rite of exorcism, the laity can perform, and that is, again, it's a house blessing, and that is, it is a beautiful blessing.
Uh-huh.
It's primarily done for if you have human spirits that are deliverance on a home that are present. When you're dealing with demonic entities, something that's more malevolent and evil, and to get someone who is a little bit more advanced certainly in demonology. The solemn ritual, you're talking about someone who is possessed. So that is extensive, and you have to get into not only, of course, the logical implications, but you have to get into the spiritual, the mental, the legal consequences as well. There's a lot that goes into performing a solemn ritual of exorcism. It's not something that's done overnight at all. It can't be. It's something that must be done with great care. So all T's must be crossed and I's must be dotted. You have to understand, you don't want to. And one of you guys asked earlier about illnesses versus someone who's possessed. One thing you don't ever want to do is perform an exorcism who has multiple personality disorder, for example. And the reason being is because homework. And you perform an who has multiple personality disorder, and they're not possessed. And what you do is you create another personality.
Really?
And so this is why it's to make sure that you do the whole. You speak to their doctor. You make sure that you're doing that's scientific, respectful before you move obviously into the spiritual realm.
Now, when you get somebody like that, does the doctor ever say, "There's apparently something wrong with her, I want to hospitalize her first," and try to like downplay anything just so he can,
Sure, yes, and if that's the case, I would never go to a person and say, "Listen, I think the doctor is wrong." If the doctor comes to me and says, "This person clearly is showing signs of mental illness," then I'm going to tell your doctor is saying that you are showing mental illness. I am not a doctor. I'm not a mental therapist, and therefore my advice to you is to seek mental help first. Now, I've dealt with psychiatrists who have said medicine is not going to help the person. It's not going to help this person stop levitating. It's not going to help this person stop speaking in dead languages. And so I have had doctors tell this person needs, and of course that takes great humbleness on their part, because obviously many doctors think that medicine and therapy will take care of the issue. But if facts are, if the person is levitating and the person is speaking dead languages and the person is speaking signs that are outside of the norms of mental illness, then the doctors, I have workers who say, "Listen, this is outside." And so they will call me.
All right. Now, going back to even before any of this happens, two questions that me. What does this person to make themselves vulnerable to become possessed? And what is one's goal in possessing them?
Well, as far as what there's a variety of reasons as to why possessed. It could have been something that they have done, such as provoking. If they're a paranormal investigator, stop provoking. It's very dangerous.
Now, what exactly do they do to provoke the demon itself?
Well, many paranormal investigators will go and investigations, and they'll say, "Hey, if you're so tough, show something. Show me something. Do something. If you're so bad, why don't you do something to me?"
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
He said he's heard it a lot.
I've heard it a lot. I did it once or twice.
And I was on Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans, and I was to my church, and I told Zach, I said, "Zach, you got to stop this stuff. What you're doing is going to cause harm to you." And as a matter of fact, I'm very proud of them, because they have recently said, "Look, we're dealing with some personal as we provoke." And so, and They do. It's very dangerous to provoke. So by provoking, just because the demonic does not provoke then, does not mean it will not provoke later.
I've always kind of felt that way. Why go to a place and purposely, try something that you're not even sure of who or what it is, angry? It just never gets to me.
It makes good for good TV.
Are the same. See, here's the thing. A lot of guys will go in with this machismo attitude.
Yeah.
We're going to beat it up. But see, the problem is we're thinking of the physical realm.
Yeah.
And we can't think like that. They exist on the physical realm. They exist on the spiritual realm, the consequence of the physical realm. So the problem is we are thinking already, well, we're going to beat it up, we're going to hit it, and we're going to punch it. Well, that doesn't, they don't exist in that realm. Or we are at a mage.
It's like shadow boxing.
It really, it kind of is. And they're very patient. And so they're going to see you face to face. They're going to see you when you're at your most vulnerable, when you're sleeping, when you lift. And that's when they attack. Because they're cowards, opportunists. And so they're not going to attack you face to face. They're not going to see you face to face. They're not going to do that. They're going to see you when you are at your least or your most vulnerable.
Well, we had another phone call. They'd like to know, if an exorcism has been successful, where does this demon go? And this is my take onto it. Does it find another body soul to immediately attach onto, or does it kind of like go back to hell?
It talks about the lake of sulfur, the fiery lake of sulfur. And quite honestly, a lot of times when you are in the presence of a demonic entity, you will actually get that sulfur. And it's about in Revelation about that. And so it is our theological belief that when a demonic entity is expelled from a human and is defeated by the power, of course, of God, not by the exorcist. The exorcist is only an instrument in which God is using to defeat the demonic. The demonic is tortured and is thrown into the fiery pits of the sulfur of hell. And so, theologically speaking, that the torture exists within hell.
Now, have you to a demon that's, I've seen you before, Long, I'll show you, this time, or anything like that, or...
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm kind of, making fun a little bit, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, and so do you believe that that's the same demon, or do you believe that it's, just trying to get at your nerves to some degree?
Well, yeah, and the thing is that you don't listen to demonic entities. You do not allow them to manipulate the conversation. Demonic entities will often try to manipulate the conversation. Often. Demonic entities will imitate the voice of a deceased loved one. And they have done that.
Wow.
And so I've been in a situation where they've done that as well. So they will try to pull those emotional strings, and so you just simply do not allow that to occur. You have to control the entire. An exorcist is controlling the entire situation. I will tell you this: during an exorcism, there is no such thing as a bystander. During an exorcism, that doesn't exist. A bystander does not exist ever. Every single person who is present must be actively aware. Otherwise, it's not an exorcism. I mean, because an exorcist would never allow ever a bystander. That's why I will never perform an exorcism on camera. Now, a deliverance, that's different. When you're praying over someone and that's a state of oppression. That's when someone is oppressed. They're feeling like a demonic entity or an evil spirit, malevolent spirit is attached to them, and you're forcing the entity to remove the person's presence. That's a different story. That's not that's not possession. But when you perform the solemn ritual, every person present be actively engaged in prayer.
No.
Well, this goes back. When we were at the West Virginia Penitentiary, we did a ghost thing last year, and we were all in this sugar shack, which is like the hellhole of the place. All of a sudden, several people smelled something like burning, and then a photograph turned up later that showed almost like a trail, mark from one girl's hand down to the ground. What I don't know for aside from a match smells like would it have been, I mean that place is notorious for having evil that were there and were murdered there or died there, and and that just got me thinking when you said that a lot of times you can smell like this sulfur smell.
When entity is present, there's no guessing. There is absolutely no guessing. I have friends who are psychic and who are really truly gifted psychics, but I will also say this: you don't need a psychic there to tell you that they're present. You don't need. If you need a psychic present to tell you that there is a demonic entity present, then there's no demon.
Okay.
Plain and simple. There's no demon. Every single person will get an overwhelming sensation of oppression. The feeling is unmistakably. It's just the oppression. Every anxiety, every hair, every anxiousness, every sense of dread over me, and you just want to go. You just want to leave right now. Immediately you feel sickness to your stomach, headache. You got to go now, and there's no need for a psychic. The feeling just of dread, total despair and dread. McKell, when she was being treated, her seizures, she had mild seizure. She had terrible seizures. She was at one hospital, and she described some of the visions that she had were it was truly terrible. And she began to omit an odor, and the odor was just bad. I mean, it smelled like feces. And a lot of times, with the demonic entity that's present, is you'll get that overwhelming sensation of a really foul, rotten odor flesh. It's just a terrible odor. And so again, it just everything that you can possibly that will turn your stomach does, and that's when you truly know that you have something that's evil. Plus, there are other outward signs of manifestation, but there's no guessing at all. There's no guessing.
Yeah, if you see somebody floating in the air that smells like rotten eggs, it's not.
Yeah, it's rotten eggs.
It's not time for a bath,
Yeah, it's all pretty overwhelming.
Now, okay, go ahead, Nick.
I was mentioning this to you when we were talking before the interview and everything. I know the chief exorcist in the Vatican Church, which is different from Catholic.
Yeah.
But his name Gabriel Amorth. And I'm hoping I'm saying that right, but I probably am not. That that the devil is in is Vatican, or that the devil resides. And of course he points out that cardinals that don't believe in Jesus. Of course, the pedophilia scandal that's been, I don't know for how long, that's been talked about in the media. Now, how could that happen? I mean, it just seems to me to be something that, you would, going into the church, this thinking, it's probably a good job, to give me stability for the next 60, 70 years. I mean, how does that like that take place?
Well, when you have human beings involved, you're going to have some rotten apples.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, I will say this: my time in a seminary, in the Roman Catholic seminary, was the best time of my life. The people that I met, the priests that I met, were some of the best, most holy that I have ever come across in my entire life.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I could only wish that I could be not a quarter of piety, that the holiness, the humbleness that they have is inspiring. And even the women, the nuns that have so incredibly inspiring. So I have been blessed with knowing by men and women of the church who were just really true role models. Now, you have those few rotten apples that had no business being in the priesthood, who obviously have caused a great deal of harm and pain, and it's a shame. So I think, yes, there's evil certainly within those individuals who cause so much turmoil, but I think overall the church will get past this. Of course, as it goes out and the pain goes, I can't imagine the people who've they're suffering at the hands of the priests that they trusted.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. We have a zero tolerance stuff in the old Catholic Church. We to the police. There's just a absolute zero tolerance for that, and we allow our priests to marry. So, but that's neither here nor there. We can argue celibacy issue. This is pedophilia. This is an illness, and so I think those individuals need to get the help. They need to get it defrocked. Mm-hmm. They need to be removed from, and obviously get the help that they needed. But I think when you have human beings, you're going to have some unfortunately some rotten apples in the barrel. I've come across some just wonderful men and women to meet.
Yeah, even though you hold a high position in a church, it doesn't mean that you're not human, and it doesn't mean you can't mess up at all.
Well,
I think that's where a lot of people see that wrong.
I think ego can certainly get in the way, especially, and I've met some bishops who were very egotistic. They eyeball the. They want to. I met seminarians who were very egotistical. I mean, they had that purple power fever. They wanted to be a bishop. That was their main goal. That they want. So, I think yes, but that's the whole idea. The whole idea of the seminary is formation, academic and spiritual formation to weed out those people, for those people who are innocent.
I got a question for you. We only got like a minute left. We're talking about exorcism. Just texted me a question. How do you stop when you're doing the ritual? How do you stop the demon from coming into somebody doing the exorcism or one of the guys praying? Like, how do you stop that from happening?
Well, I mean, we're all we ourselves, of course, we're sanctified in oil, holy oil. Uh-huh. We're all blessed, and so it is always a risk. That's why we have two priests present in case to myself that I would be removed and an exorcism would continue.
All right, Chip, I want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Full of knowledge, like my brain's swelling. I love this conversation. We've always wanted to hear from a priest what the version of exorcism is, because we hear from all the laymen and stuff.
Movies and TV influences so much of what people believe.
Yeah, and can some, if you're listening to an audio tape of a exorcism,
if you have a demonic infestation issue or you're oppressed, yes, it can.
Well, I apologize to the tens of thousands of that listen to that exorcism.
Well, yeah, I would just give a disclaimer. Just simply say if you're dealing with a demonic infestation or oppression, you might not want to listen to the following recording.
Wow.
That sounds good.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
Thank you again. You're going to be hearing back from us because this is just a topic that's great, and I think that you really we needed to ask. And I want to thank you again very much for being a part of this.
Been my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Archbishop James Long, we got all your stuff up on pictures, some website or add whispersradio.com, and it'll link you all up there. Thank you, James.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Some heavy stuff. I feel kind of crazy, for playing the exorcisms now. I hate it. And then time for the news. You're listening to Whispers Radio on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and the astronomers. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I think we're streaming from the internet. We were having some issues during the last hour. Anywho, I'm Jordan Klein, and she is the lovely Lola Miller. Give us a call at 1600 if you're 866-514-1600. That's toll free. It's like 64 degrees out here in downtown Wheeling. It's actually pretty nice, considering all the cold weather we've been having.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Need to find out how to get in touch with a landlord. The house next to mine is like falling apart. And when I say next, there's like 3 feet between. Yeah, just about. And I know there's a raccoon highway. So not hard because there's a tree with branches that go over to this roof. And I have seen raccoons coming down that tree. Turns out somehow my cats are getting into that broken window that is really, really high. I don't know how they're even doing it. But they have found their way out of a broken window in the front on the roof of that porch and then jumping from to the roof of the porch and peering into our bedroom windows. And yet when you open your window, they know they're in trouble. So I need somehow I've got to find out. I've got to get somebody in that building to block these windows because not only what I'm really afraid of, they found the first rabid coon in Ohio County.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was
Jordan,
in the
it's
paper.
time
I
to get
know,
you
and I told your story in reference to that the other day. But
again, folks, it'll be a couple months, but you know.
I'll worry when the full moon comes out. But
But still foam at the mouth a little bit.
Do
get
ya?
a little crazy.
I've heard that will go away over time.
I've been
perhaps.
hoping. It's been a year.
You were doing that before
Well, at
you
least
got
you
bit.
quit growing all that hair.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you have.
I quit growing it on the top of my head.
It's called Nair.
I hate you, Nick.
I don't know how to go about that.
Now, wouldn't you be able to go over to the city? I know they have I don't know if it's the deeds
books,
or the.
But yes, that's how I would have.
Seemed
to
like
go
you'd
about
almost
it.
could call the cops and say, "Hey, there's."
Talldorf says call the city.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Because there's a tree in the backyard too that really needs to go. The AEP. Sorry, Brian, I was supposed to take care of that, but they should probably come and that because there's lines running all the way through it.
Oh.
And because of the way the tree is grown now, the lines are rubbing off. So they're, I don't all of a sudden want to have crispy critter for dinner. I don't know, but yeah.
Maybe you could call the animal control, and since they can't get in unless they have the person. Then they get rid of the animals when they find the absentee landlord, and if they don't find them, they probably could find another way of getting in there because it's it's a health hazard too for people.
If you sort of Lola, give us a call. Patch up the holes in your wall.
We
so
won't.
Raccoons are
We
coming
won't.
through.
I'm just. I bet Linda said she freaked because all of a sudden she saw this tail go past her bedroom window, and that looked like the cat's. Can't be the cat's tail. It's up on the second floor. Actually, it's like the third floor when you're looking at my house. And just that can't be. That can't. And so she was like stuck her head out, and a lady from across the street went, "Is that your cat up there?" Like, oh no.
Jeez.
I wondered why he wasn't getting dirty anymore when he was gone all the time. That's because he's in the house next door.
He's playing around, exploring.
Yeah,
Is it Tigger?
No, but Tigger has been. One of the guys that walks their dogs past the house told me Tigger's going in and out of that basement window, but this was the Oss.
Oh.
So he knows better. Yes.
I want to remind everybody, too, coming up June 30th. That is a Wednesday. We got some specials, though, to kind of sweeten the deal from it being on an inconvenient day. Demonologist Dwayne Claude coming in from New York for investigators Herb Street. I believe he's from New York as well, Nick. Is that?
He's from Buffalo, I think.
That's New York. And from West Virginia, Sherry Brake, who does all the pen.
Not in New York.
Nick. They're going to be joining us, giving presentations, helping out. Sherry's got a lot of history that deals with the pen. We're going to be giving away T-shirts, too, that, say, like, second annual pen trip with Whispers. It'll be a fun time for everybody. The presentation from Dwayne Claude is going to be brought to us by Grandview Park, and we thank them very, very much for that because it's going to be fun times. So go.
Best kept secret of the Northern Panhandle, or even the state of West Virginia. Man. Okay, that's the Grandview is the second best.
Oh
There we
yeah,
go.
Grandview is they have
It was
really done
awesome.
wonderful things
Oh,
with
yeah.
that place.
We went up there and we were both just like, really, this was up here? We didn't know.
This is here?
And I mean, they had a Mosaico, and he
Yeah.
took us everywhere around there, and it was just like,
The stuff they've done a lot because I've been back
You've been
up.
back?
The stuff they've done since you and I both went.
yeah. And he was
redone a lot.
enthusiastic. I mean, he's like, we're going to do this, and if it even comes, halfway to what he had planned, it's going to be legendary. So
Legendary.
legend. Wait
So
for
go to
it.
whispersradio.com on Ghost Hunt. Get your ticket. It'll be good times. Lola, where you were saying that the cattail at the window, I knew that's what Romanek saw out of his window.
Could be. My cat.
Nick, you want to introduce our guest?
I can do that, I guess. All right. Chris Iverson is the co-owner and co of Open Minds Forum and the Serpo website. He's the public face of the Project Serpo investigation. Chris, you with us?
Yes, I am. How you doing, Nick?
Well, very good. Yourself?
Great, thank you.
Chris, I got a question. It's something that I've had problem. My brain isn't working around it because it was first introduced to me as like saying Avatar is real.
Right.
And I haven't been able to twist my brain around, I guess, the Serpo project. Can you explain it to me? It's dumb.
I'll try to help you out there and get you
Don't
here a little
dumbify
bit.
me.
Don't use big words.
I'll speak
yeah.
The Project Serpo first came out at the end of 2005.
Uh-huh.
As you said, there's been a lot of things around that make it somewhat difficult to try to get your head around and try to understand. There's been a lot of intrigue behind the scenes. There's been some pieces of information. And, of course, with just about anything that is out there in the world of ufology and phenomena, you have debunkers, people who are trying to, the magician's trick on you and force you to look elsewhere while something else is going on. In this particular case, we've never really quite sure if Project Serpo was the name for the project itself, or if this was a name that as somewhat of a cover for it when it went public. From the multiple side, and this really comes to us from the world of intelligence, military, and so forth, is that there have been at least the exchange program that did occur, and possibly as many exchange programs. So with the information that came to us, and I'm sure that you've read some of the release.org website and the discussion which is prominent and really led to the beginning of the Open Minds Forum, is quite a bit of the discussion did get centered and interact with information obviously not true and was put out there for the fuse in the story, for the plausible deniability, those people to come out and say, oh, come on, they had a supply list that went to Serpo, the ponds and lawnmowers. Come on, the whole thing's got to be.
Now, can you explain what Project Serpo is? Because there's a lot of people out there, I'm sure right now, because I'm telling them, really struggling with. If you can explain what the project was, because you're talking the exchanging and all that.
Sure. It first, a little backstory to it was that if you go back to 1947, of course, everybody was Roswell. And not only Roswell, but the fact that there were a couple occurred within a few months of each other in the American Southwest. Somewhere in one of these crashes, a live extraterrestrial was recovered. Lived for approximately 5 years and was able to communicate with the help of the people who were holding him with the planet or the star system that he came from. And eventually it led to a landing that occurred at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964. At that, in 1964, there was an exchange of information, and a date was finally agreed upon for an exchange in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
And the original name for this project, by the Crystal Knight, when it was finalized and the report came out after the astronauts returned, it was changed to Propo. The Crystal Knight we're pretty sure about. The renaming for Serpo we're about, as far as the name went. But anyway, there were 12 people that trained for approximately 18 months. They were basically sheep-dipped in terms of what had happened to them. So for all intents and purposes, if anybody tried to, they would turn up in the military or intelligence records as being dead. And with the people, or these even, whoever you want to call it, the aliens, go back to their home planet. And in exchange, a new one of their own, stayed behind because they had died. So the first one...
So they got 12 of ours and we only got one of them?
Yeah, kind of gives you a sense of worth and value to us, I guess. I think they had a lot more to contribute to us than we did to them.
Our government.
There you go. They screwed it up again.
Yep.
You know?
Now, what exactly was our government looking for in this deal? I mean, was there some kind of an exchange of, like if, because a lot of times when governments, about the world will do this kind of an exchange of ambassadors or so forth, they're always seeking some kind of relations back and forth and hoping that if, that we're going to come to some kind of understanding, at least culturally. So what exactly were we looking for?
Out of this particular project, what we were looking for was base energy.
Okay.
And secondarily, what they are. But primarily because this was a project that was run by basically a combination of the CIA, is they really were looking at the tech, whether it be in terms of transportation or weaponry, just advancements that aid and help us evolve in our fledgling economy in post-World War II.
Now, is there any specifics as to what we gained from it in terms of technology?
The microwave toaster.
Right. Certain things like fiber optic cable.
Okay.
Is definitely one of the things that are mentioned. You can go back to where it's mentioned prominently. I'm sure familiar, and hopefully some of the audience is familiar with Philip Corso. And in Corso's book, he talks about the technology that was passed on to us basically through these programs, where they worked with our scientists and technological developers in terms of taking the technology and finding a way to introduce into our society.
Now, he seemed to never come out and say definitively that there was an exchange program going on, because reading his book, it seemed like it was more of it was here, and he kind of more or less took the items from the crash and pushed them off to like this manufacturer, this company, for them to back engineer.
Exactly.
And now, is that kind of like instead of understanding was that it was from the crash, that instead that they were giving us like, well, take a look, and then somehow it got to him and he shuttled it out or something?
I think he was responsible for the dissemination of the projects to the military and industry. It's pretty typical, whether you're in intelligence or military, where you have compartmentalization that occurs in any project. You had everything from the people who prepped the astronauts to the people who took care of them when they came back, to somebody who was in a period of receiving the information. And in this particular case, that would be Corso, and never told where it all came from. I'm sure, being as intelligent as he probably pretty much guess where it came from, as there had always been rumors that it was going on. And not one of the things, though, that he was really ever... You don't question things like that. You take what's given to you and you do what you're supposed to do with it. You follow your orders. And because of that, Corso, not necessarily things from the crash again, but things, the EBE.
What is that?
I'm sorry, which is extraterrestrial biological entity.
Now, I know Jordan and myself have had arguments over this. Him pretty much saying that I'll believe anything, and him pretty much sticking to it's too incredible. I mean, to get around, like you said before. What exactly, if you were, going to go to court and have to lay out the case that this is happening or has happened in the past, I mean, what would you look at as the
Evidence.
the smoking gun, so to speak?
Well, there's so much evidence that really does exist. It's difficult to corroborate some of the evidence, though. You have official documents, whether it's about magic, the Magic 12, the SOM manual that tells you basically what to do if you encounter an alien or a crash and so forth. And they've always come out as for evidence and things that are out there. For me personally, one of the things that you have to go back to is in really thinking out. If you go way back and you look at Middle Ages history and art, where UFOs and aliens incorporated into everything from, well, even further back than that, cave paintings from over 10,000 years ago, to art and tapestry that was produced during the Middle Ages because of things that they saw in the sky. They didn't have any type of a reference.
Well, mine is more for Serpo. What
for Serpo itself?
Yeah, for Serpo itself. Like, what is there that says, yeah, we had this exchange program? Where were they keeping this EBE? Who was in charge of that? How were they able to keep that under wrap? If it all happened.
As Todd's website or on in the chat room, is there a legit paper trail and money trail? I mean, because I guess follow the money and follow the bureaucrats more or less.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
both of which are very difficult to follow. I mean, if you go back to World War II, the Manhattan Project, you had an entire town of over 10,000 in the middle of the desert that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
If to the point through the use of black budgets and so forth, they can hide things. As kept, I believe from a conversation with actually two different conversations that I had with people who used to be assistant directors at CIA, one who publicly stated, Randolphi, indicated that there was an entity that was kept at Los Alamos. And that was a quote that I received from him that I was permitted to go ahead and give full attribute to him that he did say that.
Wow.
And that there were regular trips that were made from Washington to go out there to go see him.
So what type of alien was it? Like what?
It was, my understanding was that it was a gray.
Okay.
And of course, as I'm sure you're well aware of and has been brought up on the show and things that you've read, there's, based upon who you read and where, from 10 to perhaps as many as 80 different species that exist out there, and some of them are subspecies within. But this EBE that was kept, again, the extraterrestrial biological entity that was kept at Los Alamos, was a gray. And a classic gray.
Okay.
To us, it was the confirmation that we received from the various sources. The thing that happened that was somewhat of a confirmation in that the people who really pushed the research for it and started the Serpo.org website, and Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot now, had tracked down through various means and without getting into the detail of it, found who they believed to be a reserve astronaut, somebody who was trained along with the people that went on the actual exchange program but didn't go, just in case somebody
got sick
or whatever, right, didn't, crapped out in the training or what have you. And supposedly there were 3 of them who were trained but never went. Well, through their research, they were able to find where this one person lived. And in an exchange that occurred with somebody that I wish I could give the person's name, but I'm
Bill Gates.
Really not allowed to. Not Bill. If you keep naming U.S. citizens, I'll know, and we'll finally find the one.
So
we've only got an hour, so
we only have so much time to go through that. But Bill and Carrie received a phone call from somebody very well known, has been very deep within the past, and basically in a private email exchange questioned them as to why they were bothering the old man. And some of the details that came out of those emails was basically confirmation of the fact that this was a person who was trained to be a reserve astronaut in an exchange program. So it's kind of one of those things where it's almost like looking at something with your peripheral. You don't necessarily have that smoking gun document in front of you, but you can deduce based upon reactions that happen, like the scientists, the physicists out at CERN. They're not necessarily seeing everything that happens, but they're looking at it. And to us, I guess this would be something that you'd look at as a byproduct. Well, this person would not be if this wasn't a person. The other information that we had was he was a backup astronaut.
Wow.
And so you put those things together and you go, okay, that's confirmation.
Wow. If you could for a few minutes, Chris, we got to take our bottom of the hour break.
Sure.
The music you're listening to is The Astronomers and Indie. Look them up. MySpace, Facebook, they're on there. You'll love them. We'll be right back.
Everything in outline, symbol, complex meaning. Baby, 'cause
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio, 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UN Radio Network. It is 7:36. Sorry about that. PM. About 64 degrees here in downtown Wheeling. Give us a call for 1600 if you're out of the area. 1-866-514-1600. I'm Jordan Klein. He's Nick Queen. She is the lovely Lola Miller. And our guest tonight, Mr. Chris Iverson. We were talking about Project Serpo. Still with us? No. Nick.
I was going to say, now I know from reading through the Serpo site, and there's a lot of stuff there. If anybody out there has never been there, it's serpo.org. Along the top are it's 133A, which is pretty much different piece of information from was it Request or Anonymous or something like that about this Project Serpo itself, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, and this person's his identity has never been released at all, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, is he still releasing information?
Yes.
Okay.
The activities, the communication that goes back and forth between the person who is the primary contact, Anonymous, is an individual by the name of Victor Martinez, who has about a 50-person email list that he distributes info on. But Victor, yes, literally is in steady contact, and it's, let's just say it's...
Okay. What I was looking through here, and I always found it most interesting was the descriptions of the planet, of what they discovered. But I know 12 went, 8 returned. 2 of them had died on Serpo itself. Was there ever any explanation given as to why? I mean, was there just their time to go or accident or anything like that?
One actually died on the way there.
Okay.
And the way it was written up in the commander's journal that came out is indicated that it looked like he might have died of an embolism. Could have been something that he might have had that was attributable to the conditions for the space travel, as it was apparent that there was quite a bit of orientation on the parts of the astronauts on board the ship, and they really weren't sure if that was just due to the speed that they were traveling at, or the gravitational effects, or even if they were in some, for lack of a better term, suspended animation during the trip.
Now, before we go, and something I hadn't even thought of the ship itself, we're all kind of used to the typical, saucer kind of craft. Most people, when you say that's the first thing they pop in. They were probably traveling on to something larger than this.
Yeah.
Now, what is it? Kind of a triangular craft? Is there ever any itself that took them to Serpo?
They were never quite positive of the shape of the ship because they knew that they went up in a much smaller craft, kind of a typical saucer shaped, and to their determination, they were in a mothership, I guess you'd call it, and was most likely mostly round in shape.
Yeah. All right. Now, okay. So one died on the way, the other one died on Serpo.
Right. One died on Serpo. One died along the way.
Now, was there any explanation given for why that other?
The person that died there, boy, I got to dig into my memory banks here.
Yeah, I was looking, trying to find the explanation, and I can't remember those.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like he fell sick or accident. Not exactly quite sure.
Okay, and two decided to remain on the planet while the other 8 came back.
That's correct.
Now, did they ever return?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's define this. You said they came back, but they didn't return.
No.
What?
Two. Okay, so one dies on the way, so you got 11. Another one dies on the planet. 8 returned, and 2 stayed on Serpo.
Stayed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, where did
They have all passed on. Information that somebody else totally outside of all of this is that they all died 5 years of their return. And most likely it would have been due to cancers that they would have obtained from the trip itself. They were sequestered for a couple of years, actually, as debriefing. And by that point in time, they were all getting sick. And
now, how far did they have to travel?
Well, if it was indeed Zeta Reticuli that they went to, that 46 light years, that exists out there, that this could have been a different system, something much closer.
So 46 light, that's, correct me if I'm wrong here, a light year is a year traveling at the speed of light. So it took them 46 years to get there, if they could hit light speed?
No, and in fact, the trip there, I believe, was 17 months, and the trip back was 9 months.
Okay.
So obviously,
they were traveling faster than light speed.
Some type of travel that's faster than light. That's correct.
Okay, now.
Now that's again, when you look at the possibilities that this was not Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 that they went to, some of the although this could have been another exchange program, is that it was actually Alpha Centauri.
Now, these other exchange programs, because the only one I had ever heard of before, I think I talked to you the other day, was just Serpo. You said that there is possibly 3 others or 3 altogether?
Right. Information that's come to us as we've tried to research this and talk to various people. There's one that's been mentioned where there were 3 people that went. And again, as I mentioned, that Surrey was a potential site for one of the visits. Another one that was mentioned was Bernard's Star as a potential exchange visit that could have occurred. So it's hard to tell if these were nation stories that were put out there, or if these might have been actual different that did occur.
Okay. Now, real quick, a question from the board from NY Lily. These are telling you the truth.
Never do.
Yeah, you can't. You don't know if you can trust them.
You don't know if you can. I think, to a certain degree, I think in general, I think Lily's correct that you really cannot trust. But I think in the case of the Eben that was kept here, the entity that was kept here, and the technology that was given, I'm sure that they went through a very extensive testing of the technology that they were given. And because there was even difficulty in trying to understand it, there was also some difficulty, of course, in trying to properly communicate the information, especially if you're trying to talk to somebody about something that they really don't know and understand. You're talking about a computer, fiber optic cables, microchips.
Yeah, and and it's hard to even probably talk period because we have our own understanding of science. that's probably much more primitive. And of course, we always reference back to Einstein's theory of relativity, whereas who the heck's Einstein, and what's what's relativity to that matter? I mean, so it's got to be difficult there. But another question: what exactly are they getting from this? I mean, technology. We send 12 to them. For the most part, it seems like
they wanted to search the vastness that is our knowledge, technology.
Exactly. They looked upon beings in the universe and wanted to study and figure out why we were.
See, I don't know if I can believe that. Yeah, I'm hoping you were going to laugh because I'm thinking, if not, we've got a problem. Maybe
we're screwed.
Because that's perfect when the universe is doomed.
Really believes that. Yes, him back real soon. Yeah.
But what did they get? I mean,
it actually appeared as though there was much of an exchange in terms of what we gave to them. If you go off of the journals that the commander kept and were provided in some of the releases, it appeared as though the planet that they were on, several other species also visiting there, they're pretty much allowed to roam around and explore and see what their planet life, their culture was. I don't think that they were really trying to learn all that much from us. I'm sure they kind of looked at us, as if we came a kind of primitive pygmies in Papua New Guinea. What are they to us? We'll study them. We can study them from afar. We can study them knowing that we're studying them. I'm sure that that's something that probably went on for quite some time upon us as some type of a primitive society.
Now, did you? How do I say this? Now we walk freely around their country or their planet. How do we keep theirs so captured? I guess
because we're paranoid.
Seeing that I can believe because we still are. But I mean, at this point, it seems like to me, I mean, looking over everything, and I've not read through every single thing probably as deeply as you have. It seems they were almost into this, but up until the crash, they would have been happy not doing any of this. They would have kind of kind of keep the prime directive kind of thing. If everybody allow me to use Star Trek for a second, but the crash changed things.
Yes, it did. When the being was recovered from the crash, I don't necessarily the crash because there had been crash recorded prior to this.
Okay.
I think this was the first time that a live being was obtained from a crash. That's what really led to it. I think that there had always been somewhat of a mistrust and a misunderstanding about various crashes that had occurred in the past. It could have been happens in the United States. You think it happens over there. They were thinking it was us. Again, you've got that paranoia that exists. Who is it really, or is it from off planet? But when covered EBE-1, as they called him, I think that changed it. And that gave them an opportunity. Wow, okay, here's a real live being in front of us. It's not somebody that's appearing at night. It's not something from a story. We have a live being here, and we can examine it. And doctors are brought in to look at him and communicate with him. And I think that was the point in time that if you look at man's natural desire to explore, that's probably where the request came from us to them. It helped him to communicate back to his home planet. And in doing so, the suggestion basically came from us that we would like to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, did they? The one thing I've never seen any pictures of this, and you would think they might not have ever been released. Are there images or videos? Is there any indication at all that there's that we have of images of the planet, the ships, or anything?
Yes, we've been told that there are 1,000 documents that exist. That includes transit documents, their time that they spent off. There was also pictures that they took that came back. None of this, however, has been recorded. If it has been, it kind of is sitting out there in the mix of stuff that has been faked and photoshopped and everything else, and who knows.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so frustrating about any of this is that you never know. Well, you could do that easily with Photoshop, and Now, yourself, do you believe that Serpo actually happened?
It did, yes.
Okay,
Well,
now,
he wouldn't be keeping the website
well,
and stuff
not
if he didn't.
necessarily. I mean, it's it's a discussion. I think it's a valid question. How much of it do you think is disinformation, though?
I'd say of what we're a good third of it, at least, is disinformation.
And that's even the information that's on the site.
Yes.
And you're now, is that all from Request Anonymous? And that he's releasing some disinformation, or somehow that they're starting to get, somebody to give information, or how exactly has that, I guess, got into the website itself?
Right. There were actually, I mean, there's one original Anonymous that is still referred to as Request Anonymous or RA or Anon. But there's actually a group of 6, and they're all retired from DIA.
Okay.
Or they're now all retired. I believe at the time, I think 2 of them were still employees. And as a group, they kind of got together and released information. So were written by one were written by another. There was also an attempt that was made by some people to hack in and steal the email accounts and spread false information that way, in an illegal attempt to determine who the identity was. Ultimately, it failed and fell apart and blew up in their face in a short period of time.
Now, is it believed that we're the only government that's had a program?
There's been some indication that others. There's been an indication from Russia.
Okay.
But again, these things have been nailed down so tightly within countries in which they occurred. We're sitting here questioning whether there was any 3 here in the United States.
Sure.
So anything, that comes from elsewhere is really the ability to attach any to it is pretty low.
Okay.
Did these guys volunteer for this? Or just told, here's your new assignment?
They volunteered, but the details of it until they were actually well within it. But they were told with the result of it, basically, that they would be, as the term is called, sheep dipped.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
Sheep dip.
you may as well be dead because no.
Kind of like joining the MI in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. The story that will exist out there in the public is that you died in a training accident or something like that.
Wow.
Wow. Have you or anybody gone through then and looking for other names, but like researching training accidents and seeing if perhaps there is some afterwards anyway?
Yeah.
And?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
There's people that you would look at. I mean, you have to, if you look at the time, if you look in the 50s and 60s, the training program in existence, the development of, the race for the moon was going on, and Mercury and Apollo were going on, and even the deaths in the public, there were deaths testing the X-1 rocket, for instance. There have been plenty of training deaths that have occurred out there just in the desert doing regular training missions and so forth that they were doing. And it would act easy. So when you do the research, and it takes quite a bit to do, you find people who are listed as dying in crashes, solo crashes by themselves. You try to send them and their family, and you look to the family of there even being a family that they had. And you kind of flag that one as going, okay, that could have been somebody that was sheep, something like this.
A program of some kind.
A different program, very well could have been.
Time. I want to thank you very much.
Unfortunately, because this is fascinating.
It's always when our conversations get really good, heated, and deep that the clock's like, So we're going to be getting in contact with you and maybe talking about this a little bit today.
Oh, fantastic.
Website's linked up to our Nick?
Yes, and also can you announce, because I totally missed it on the website itself, but you're going to be speaking at a conference here soon on this topic, and when is that, and more information?
Sure, that's going to be this coming in Bordentown, New Jersey, and the website is drufo.org. You can go there, learn details about it. I actually get to lead off on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. talking about this. Got 2 hours talking about Serpo and exchange programs that occurred. So I'm looking forward to it, very excited. And in the past, this is actually going to be my first time that I've ever gone to a conference.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
Well,
Hope everything goes well.
Because you know what happens at those conferences.
It stays at the conference.
That's right.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Like I said, you'll be hearing from us again, and we have your websites linked up to our...
Well, fantastic. Nick, Jordan, Lola, thank you very much. Much
thank you.
appreciated, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and provided you with some good answers and questions for you to think about in the future.
Well, I'll be going through everything again.
Chris Iverson, serpo.org, and openmindsforum.com. So go check it out. Thanks, Chris. Bye, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we really heated argument before the show on this. It's Avatar. It's Avatar.
I was like, if you take Serpo and add Pocahontas, it's Avatar.
Well, maybe he had.
Am I swayed?
Oh, yeah.
It takes a lot more than there's lots of evidence, but I don't have it.
I think the big, and I know where you have back, is my argument is that Jordan doesn't believe anything unless it's ghost. That's my argument, because he doesn't, anything hardly.
He believes.
No, I don't believe
like
it.
You could tell
there's
him
a chance.
A piece of toast jumped up and walked. Oh my gosh! It's like
true.
hook, line, and sinker with
It's
Nick.
not true, but I can see. I think both of you agree. The more you dig, the more muddy it gets. I don't think you can prove any of this really.
Well,
there's always a chance.
A lot of it is.
What's that?
Our innate distrust of our government.
Yeah.
We can trust our government completely.
But I think that's why everybody kind of, this could be true.
And I think Steve was talking about this earlier.
Because they won't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we have this real distrust of our government and what they tell us, but that's just the way.
And ask both of you, is there a chance that the government did this? Probably.
Well,
if they had the chance, of course they'd jump at this.
Yep. I agree.
So that's my whole reasoning behind it, and don't even release it because they're trying to hide even worse.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, because you release one thing, and that opens. Then all the other questions come, and if it's like, well, if you didn't tell us about this, what are you not telling us about this? And
it's like, my God, something really bad.
Yeah, I know.
Next week we do have some guests lined up, but I'm still waiting for confirmation. I hate to say names before I get the blast. Usually I go home and there's like a phone call. I'm like, but
you got it.
They're slow.
Okay.
But, good show next week, though, from what I understand right now.
The Pen.
You guys will be amazed.
The Pen. Go get your ticket. He actually
that was a really.
Hi, Lola.
He talked like a man there for a second. You hear that?
Not a crime. I don't know how much when I do that. So. I'm gonna do that whole show next week.
We gotta call the bishop back. That's what it reminded me of.
Bishop Long. All right.
Long.
All
right. Go buy the tickets to the Pen. Everybody, don't be afraid. Only believe.